I believe this is a prophetic word for all of us who have been looking to President Trump. We all know God called him as our David, who definitely exposed our Goliath. But I don't believe that God is going to allow President Trump to finish this. Listen to this and tell me this is not where we are right now with President Trump.
Very clearly that the enemy standing before him was going to fall, not because he was challenging David, but because he was mocking God. But by the time we get to the second story in 2 Samuel, God over the last several decades, couple decades, has been faithful to David. He's been faithful to preserve him in the wilderness, to fulfill his promises, to give him everything that his heart desires. David is at the apex of his leadership. God has been faithful to him, but now he's confronted with a different enemy. And the different enemy now is not a giant on the outside, but it's a giant on the inside. And the giant is apathy. It says that it's in the spring of the year, the time that kings go out to battle. In other words, this is the time where David should have mounted up, he should have led the armies of Israel and expanded the territory. He should have pushed the borders out even further. What's interesting is when you read the Old Testament, in the Old Testament, God gives Moses the parameters for the promised land. He says, I'm going to give you the land from the Mediterranean all the way to the Euphrates. Do you know that Israel never possessed all the land that God promised them? Never has. David should have been out there with the strength and the momentum that he had. He should have been pushing the boundaries. But he doesn't. He stays back. It says it's the spring of the year, the time that kings go out to battle. This is what kings are supposed to do. When you're a leader, you lead and you motivate your men. You fight for the cause that motivated you when Goliath was mocking God years and years ago. But something has changed now in David's heart. So instead of going, he delegates it. He says, Joab, you go. I'm going to stay here. And instead of finding himself on the battlefield, he finds himself on the rooftop. On the rooftop, looking out over the city, looking out over everything that God has given to him and enjoying it. He's comfortable. And can I tell you that Christians, just like David, you were never called to the comfort zone, you were called to the battle zone.
Come on.
And David chose the comfort zone over the battle zone, and because he chose the comfort zone of taking the path of least resistance, delegating the battle to other people, and enjoying everything that God had given instead of possessing even more that God had in store for him, he found himself in a difficult position, a compromising position. And it ends up being that Bathsheba gets pregnant, he kills Uriah, he's confronted by Nathan the prophet. The two sins that there's no forgiveness for under the law of Moses is murder and adultery.
Right there. That is where we are, church. We need the ecclesia now, baby. We need the ecclesia.